Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Moving to Texas team here with another episode of the Real Advice Podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome this week's guest to the show. He is the co-founder and team leader of the number one team in Utah. Not only is he a realtor and a team leader, he's also a husband and a dog dad. He is an investor, flipper, traveler, and just all around great guy. I'm excited to dig into all of the different facets of his business. Please join me in welcoming Michael Perry to the podcast. What's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for having me. This will be fun today.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited to dig in. So for someone that doesn't know you, how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, not inspirational at all. I think it's cool looking back because it's kind of by accident. So I was playing football at a junior college and I tore my knee for the second time in spring ball. And if you know anything about junior college athletics, I was on my third year. So if it doesn't work, then it's like, just give it up.
Yeah.
So I gave it up. I got my real estate license 31 days later because school wasn't for me. And then I jumped right into real estate and I've sprinted ever since 7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, as fast as you can with your knee.
Yes.
So like a fast jog.
Yes. You keep getting funnier every time I talk to you.
I make fun of you more and more, the more I get to know you. No,
There's
but
more softballs for you.
Yeah, certainly. You guys have certainly hit the ground running, if you will, to go back to your same metaphor.
Walking on the elliptical.
Yeah. Walking with a knee brace on and 2-pound weights. But I digress. So, you have a family run group, right? Like the fam is all involved. So at the point where you decided to get your real estate license, like how many Perrys were real estating at that time?
That is what I think is so cool about the story. So absolutely was not a family business. So my dad was a real estate agent. I got into real estate, I would say almost as like a gap job to figure out.
Go make some money.
Yeah. I was like, I can figure out how to sell a house or two and make 20, 30, 40,000 a year and I'll figure it out. And so I got into real estate. My dad did not run a team. Mm-hmm. We were not partnered on anything. He just basically was a good dad that said like, hey, this is kind of how you do things. I'll help you as much as you want. And I didn't really want the help. I took some advice and some pieces from him. And then pretty cool, about 6 months in, I got in with my friend Mason at the time. Not at the time, we're friends. When I got in, I was with Mason. So it was me, Mason, Jack. We bought Zillow leads together. And what has been so cool is $1,500 of leads. And that piece by piece was just like, hey, we think we found a business model to where now we just need more agents to help us support these people.
Yeah. And so just for reference, when did you get licensed?
2017.
Okay.
2016. Sorry. So it's been 7 years.
Okay. So 7 years later, how many homes did your group sell last year?
7. I don't know. I did the graphic yesterday.
I know. I was like, I saw it.
Yeah. I think it's 766.
Yeah. So over 700 homes in like 7 years, basically, to scale to where you guys are today, which is absolutely unreal. Like most teams would be happy with like selling 700 homes over 7 years. Right. And you guys sold that in 2023. So it's absolutely crazy how quickly you guys have scaled and grown and things like that. And so you guys, you and your dad and Mace were like, okay, let's buy some leads together. At what point was it like, okay, we need to figure out some sort of infrastructure and like actually make this a thing?
Probably around agent 8, which is funny because I hear people getting stressed about their teams of 5 or 10. And I'm like, just figure it out and just help. This sounds cheesy. And I'm not like the cheesy motivational person at all, but I'm like, just take care of your people till you're like 10 or 15 and then like really get dialed. You're overanalyzing everything when you're super small. So it was about, I think like agent number 7. And we weren't making any money off anybody. It was just like we were buying leads.
People.
And we were all making tons of money. That's what was cool. But this wasn't a team. Like there was no bank account that things were funneling into. And then we got into, I think it was about agent 7. And it was we went to some mastermind and was like, we kind of think these people are fools and we have it figured out. So let's create a team. And we hired a director of ops. That was actually it. So it was when we were interviewing for our director of ops, not joking, we realized we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
And that kind of,
figuring it out.
as soon as she was hired, it was from that day on very structured. She helped us mixed with we realized that this isn't like fun and games anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's how most people get into real estate, right? Like, there's very few people that I've talked to on here, right? Talking to people that are, really strong solo agents, team leads, things like that. Like, they're like, yeah, I figured it out until I realized I need to like run this like a business. I've probably talked to 5 of hundreds of interviews that like, they're like, oh yeah, I had a coach and I had a business account and I had an LLC set up. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the usual path, for groups. Looking back on it now, right, and to go from just 3 people to how many agents do you have on the team now, and staff
Like
do you guys
90,
have now? Okay,
100 with staff.
so yeah, so like 100-person organization, to go from 3 to 100. Would you have hired a director of ops sooner, looking back on it now, or do you think the like kind of building the plane as you flew it in those first few months was the right way to go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I No, I wouldn't have. And because I think it releases the stress of profitability in the beginning. So I really wouldn't have done anything different where I think you quickly, when you're launching a team, when you get to that, say 30-person mark, the ideas and the rooms you're in with these top coaches, you're included with the Perry groups now, where you have 60, 70, 80 agents. That's extremely enticing. And I would say like the promised land is false on that side, where it's so much harder. And the one thing I would have done different is we would have been much slower to hire agents.
Yeah.
Because we went from 30 agents to 80 agents in like 9 months. And then you look in the room, it's like we have 30 people who are just bodies who it is our fault that we hired. And so I think when you're scaling a team, whether you have rev share models or how much money can I make per agent, so many fall into that trap to where it's a math game.
Yeah.
And it's not a math game.
We've all done it. We've all done it, right? You're like, if I just had X amount of agents all selling 10 homes a year, then I would be making this many thousands of dollars. So let's just go hire the agents. And then you get to that tipping point where it's either you pare it back down or you clean it up and continue to grow, right? Like that's kind of the tipping point with teams. And we've taken 2 different routes on that path.
Well, it's funny. And to that point, I think I would go Navy SEAL team and a smaller team, or a team we have. I think both ways work really well financially. You can set yourself up. But it's always funny to me. It's like I'll talk to these 20, 30-person teams who are like, I'm going to scale. And they're like, what standards do you have? I'm like, honestly, standards are pretty hard in our world. It's hard to enforce. I mean, we're a corporate company at this point with the amount of people we have. And they'll say, oh, we make our agents do 24 to 30 deals. I'm like, okay, like have fun when you have 50 agents. And it's just kind of, I think you can stay small-ish or you can go big. And either, I would give advice to do either.
Well, and so, I know that there's a tipping point, right? So like small team, there's not as much overhead, right? You normally don't have spend on leads and things like that. You can do things more organically, right? Your agents can focus in on their spheres more and you can be a part of it, right? As opposed to like, you're not sitting down with 80 agents to go over their, personal plans for sphere, right?
Totally.
You're doing team events and you're doing way bigger scale things. So like, what would you say is the tipping point? Like if I was a 20 agent team right now, like what do you think, and obviously it varies per group and how their businesses are set up. But like, what's that tipping point? Because like Tom Ferry used to say like, oh, you've got to be like 25 or more, but now he's saying a way higher number. Do you have just a personal opinion on that, or like what you guys are projecting for yourselves of like, this is the right number to stay at?
Yeah, I think for us it's an office count thing. So
Okay.
if I were to give like a small team advice, this is just based off personal experience and what I've seen. I think anything over 30 becomes pointless if you're going to stay smaller. Like you can have that intimate, SOI heavy, overhead's not insane. Under 30, you can be involved in these people's lives. It feels big enough to where it's like you can't have cults created and then leave you. Over that, I would, for us in our head, it's kind of 60 to 70 per
Yeah.
office. And whether we have 700 people in 10 years or 140, it's just like anything past this, you start to walk into the team meetings having no idea who these people are. And that is not a good feeling.
Well, and so, what do you guys do to foster culture? Because that is difficult, right? Like, as you grow the team, and like, I'm sure you're not as involved, right, in every single decision that's being made because you just simply can't be, right? Like, what are things that y'all do to try to keep some of that feeling of when you were a 20 agent group?
Yeah, and it's something we've struggled with. I will be shocked the first like team leader I meet who has it all figured out. So I would say the best advice I would give is your culture goes in waves, and that's not fun to say, but I mean, for a couple of years now, we've had that moment we have right now that's like our culture, if nothing changes, is insane. It's incredible.
Yeah.
6 months ago, it was, and this comes with like brokerage change, or you have that team leader who sold 50 houses for you, they leave. And then it's like, oh my goodness, things feel like they're falling apart. I think the one thing I can point to is your staff and your management, they have to really care about the agents, and it has to be pretty public. I've been called out. Many team leaders are called out. I think it was Chet Black or Tom Ferry, where they were like, "You're going on," not to me, but to the average person, which me included. I was like,
Yeah, you're like,
"Ouch."
I felt that one.
Yeah. Oh no, it was a Zillow advisory board. That's where it was. And Levi Rogers in Texas, he's like, all these team leaders are going on a speaking tour. Like your teams would do so much better if they just saw you. And I think that line kind of like hit me to where, yeah, I think you can have games and these culture days, and or you can just be with your people,
Yeah.
and things typically go better because that's why they joined you in the beginning. So that's the advice I would give. And if you're trying to replace yourself or step out, I'm all for it. That's just business. But you have to find the people who can, I think, imitate you, or it's just like that's not going to work. You hire the wrong person to try and replace you or fill those roles, and your team will evaporate quickly.
Yeah. No, I know Byron Lazine, in Connecticut, like
Yeah.
he now splits time between Connecticut and Florida. And like one of his biggest things when the market took a turn was like he was in Connecticut every single week. Right. He was there rather than just being there for team meetings. He was there in the office doing work, doing his stuff, and being present for the team. Because it's like that's when you think back at like your most successful agents, when you think back at like the times when culture was high and things like that, it's normally like when you were there and could feel it, right, as opposed to like popping in on Zoom and things like that. So I think there's definitely lessons to be learned there. If you were a brand new agent or giving advice to a brand new agent, what advice would you give them today if they were just getting into the market, in 2024? What advice would you give to someone?
Two things. One, you absolutely can speak at a higher level than I can. Social media, like I've never gotten leads from it, but I think in Salt Lake City, I'm known for being a really good real estate agent. And I would say that's because of social media. So that's kind of like the number one necessary has to happen. I'm going to give three pieces. The second piece would, when I got in, I did 4 to 8 open houses per week. And it was just a people game in front of people. I hated door knocking. I hated cold calling. And that's just kind of a really easy way. I talk to agents all the time who they actually don't work that often. They think they do. And that's like, hey, 4 sounds like a lot, but that's really 10 hours of work, 12 hours if you're doing 3
Well,
hour
let's just say,
blocks.
so how often, like, were you doing them every day? Were you just loading up your Saturdays and Sundays? Like, what did that look like?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I would do one on Friday, two on Saturday, two on Sunday, and then I would follow up like crazy Monday through Thursday. And I would only get one buyer or one seller a weekend, and
Yeah.
then but you add that times 52 and it starts to work out
Yeah.
well. And then the
Yeah.
last thing I would say is be open to purchasing leads if you have the money, because I think that will throttle your career.
Yeah, but also along the same lines as the open house follow up, like if you're not going to incessantly follow up and do the things and consistently do it, there's no point in doing the one open house or paying for the leads or doing the things. So like I think,
Yes.
when people say they do a lot of open houses, very few are probably doing 4 or 5 a week, like you were in the beginning. So I love that.
And
The
I think
dedication.
for you, it's just not for you, for the agent, it's just make it easy. I mean, if you do one a weekend, you have to perfect it. Like, number one, you have to get the open house right. So it has to be a good location. You have to have the setup. You have to have the correct like speaking strategies to where if I'm in front of these people 4 to 5 times a weekend in the same neighborhood, they're like inherently just going to think I'm good at real estate because they see
Yeah.
me so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's how I got a lot of clients.
No, for sure. I mean, that's something that too often I see agents, and do open houses where they're in 15 different neighborhoods, right? So they may do
Yes.
15 open houses in a month, but they're in 15 different neighborhoods. But if you did 15 open houses or even 10 open houses all in one neighborhood, they keep seeing your signs, they keep seeing you, that kind of thing, that the illusion becomes reality.
Yep. 100%.
Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. One of the things that I love, speaking of social media, about your social media, one, obviously the Perry clap, and you clapping, in your videos. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But two is all of the absolutely stunning properties that you and Dom are flipping. And I mean, she's designing, so obviously we know she's the brains behind that side of it. But like, when did you get into investment and flipping and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've always loved it. I It's funny because I don't have, I think you see so many people, let's say, start with bigger pockets and they read books and books about it. But for me, it was, I had two clients who bought flips and they relied on me to find the properties. And it got to the point where I was just like, I kind of disagree with the decisions they're making.
Okay.
They'd buy this house, they would have crazy margins. And then I sold enough houses to where we could do our first one. And I mean, looking back, so lucky it happened, but at the time it sucked. We bought our first house, we gutted it, and then we paid two contractors who left. And so what got us into flipping houses was I'm meeting the drywaller because I can't afford to pay a contractor.
Yeah.
I'm meeting the painter because I can't afford to pay a contractor. And then by the end of a 15-month project that took 3 months, once we did it ourselves, I was like, this is actually easy for how hard people make it. And then Dom, who does all the design, her dad was an architect, so she grew up in it.
Okay.
And I mean, that's just lucky. Like I try and give you like formulas or train on how to do it. And it's a perfect combo because I have like hey, this deal absolutely works. Let's figure it out. Okay, it's now Dom's. Like, we got the deal. You figure out how we make it. But that's a huge passion for us, and it's been really fun to see the rewards.
So how many deals, like, I guess for 2024, what's your goal of how many deals y'all will do?
That's what's fun, and that's what I teach. I absolutely don't have a deal goal,
Okay.
and I think it's super dangerous in the flipping world. We'll at minimum do 4 because we have 3 going on, and I
Okay.
can't help myself, so we'll buy another one.
Yeah.
But the best advice I can give is be so patient Like truly, we've never looked to flip a house. It's either fallen in our lap or I've showed that house to my client. It's like, hey, there's something here that we could do.
So for you, is it just like, okay, obviously you're in a property that like it doesn't the aesthetic doesn't fit today's world, or is it that you see it and you're like, man, this is like so well priced, it's below market? Like what are some like key indicators for you of like this could be opportunity?
Yeah, I think for us, and I think we were super above board with not following the law, but just like the morals of it. I think you have so much of the industry just taking advantage of people. But I'll just give like a buy box of one we just got. It was listed at 1-1. It had no bedroom on the main level or upstairs. And to every other buyer, nobody was buying it because it didn't have a bedroom. Like the bedrooms are in the basement. And so for us, we walked in, it was $1 million. And we are like, if we can just take this wall away and add a bedroom and move the kitchen to where like you're looking at the view, we can sell this at 2.5 to 3 million. And so that's just kind of what we do. We rinse and repeat of we try to buy houses that like nobody's buying.
Yeah.
Because and that's where Dom is super talented to where like this isn't a remove a wall, design a house. It's we'll spend truly our whole due diligence period, like 14 to 21 days, bringing in architects, contractors, trying to figure out problems that if we can figure it out, we've hit the jackpot.
Yeah. No, I mean, and those numbers are, and the work going into it to get to that number, right, is so much more significant than buying a house that like looks okay, maybe knocking down one wall, throwing some new paint on it and counters and be like, yep, it's, recently remodeled kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and if, you don't already follow Michael on Instagram, like the projects that y'all are doing, it's always so cool to see the finished product. So.
Yeah, and it's fun. And like a little tidbit of advice I would give, if it comes on the market and there's 10 other people there or it's booked with showings, like just stay away. You've hit it wrong from the fact of you really need to be doing projects either like direct to seller or that nobody can figure out that have sat on the market for some time.
We obviously don't have basements in Texas. So like are bedrooms in basements super common in Utah and Salt Lake?
Yeah. So I think the easiest thing to compare this is a walkout basement. So you think like crazy cool LA house to where it's main level and then drops. And
Yeah.
so it is a walkout basement. It's kind of the only reason it's a basement is because it's on a hill.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're super common. And yeah, I mean, it's basements are brutal. And if you can solve the problems to make them cool living spaces, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother piece.
Interesting. Because when you're like, there's no bedroom on the main floor or the second floor, I was like, wait, oh no, basements. Okay, now it makes
Yeah.
sense. I was like,
Yeah.
a
It's
house with no
it's so
bedrooms.
fun. Like people from not many people have basements, so they'll call. They're like, I'm not gonna live in a basement. It's like, all right, what horror movie did you watch where someone died in a basement?
Or it's like the picture in, I mean, I grew up in Maryland, so we did have a basement, but the picture in my head is like you're pulling up like the door to open up, and then you walk down like the creaky
Yes.
staircase into the creepy
Yeah.
basement. Like, yeah, so that's like the total horror movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I just had to think about that a little bit more and to fully understand. But all right, so talking a little bit about teams, talked a little about like advice for new agents, investments. What are you excited about for 2024 in real estate?
I'm really excited about the team. It's the first time I think we're 5 years, 6 years into this, and it feels super dialed in from the perspective of like expansion teams. And
Okay.
I think the business model is always, I mean, why not expand? It, every other team is talking about it, but we just found, I think, the right people,
Yeah.
which is so important. And I think that's the best. The people who we've hired for these expansion offices, I think, mimic what we did, what
Yeah.
built the Perry Group. And I personally think we're heading into a really healthy market. I truly don't think it goes anywhere but up. And I think that's what makes me excited, because the idea of expansion has always felt forced until now.
Well, and regardless of, I mean, I also think that this year is going to be, a more fruitful year for real estate than last year was. But like even in ups and downs in the market, like you guys have continued to just increase, your agent count, increase the amount of homes you're selling, increasing the volume. So like even if the market was flat, like I still think you guys would crush, right? But like if things go the way that most economists are predicting, like there's definitely a lot of market share, to be taken, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I really feel like around this time has always been chaotic for like the new year. You set these crazy insane goals that it's like, well, at least for us we did. Where it's like, why in the world would we hit this? Like, we're not changing anything, we're not doing anything different besides a body count or people to where we think we can sell this. But now, like, we sold 25 houses in the first 6 days. And so it's like I think what I'm really excited about is I think we can be the first team in Utah who hits 1,000, and that I think will be this year.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wild prediction. You heard it here first.
Hopefully that's not wild.
I don't think that it is.
What
Knowing
are you
knowing you
excited
and Jack.
about this year in real estate? That's my only question to you.
I know this is my podcast. I actually don't answer questions. It's only me asking them. So thank you for trying, but that's no. I think for me, it's we were talking about like scaling, right? And getting to that point where it's like you either have to like flip the switch, right? And open the floodgates and you know, grow the team. We took the opposite approach, right? And so we're a team of 10 right now. And I'm really excited because I think, similar, I'm optimistic for the market this year. I think that it's going to be busy. I mean, I think we even saw that in December, right? With a little interest rate drop, like just the energy and excitement in the market. So I'm excited just to kind of get back to like the coaching and training and spending the time with the agents, like as we were saying, like when you get to 80, right? But even at 25, like it was difficult to be like, okay, like let me do a one-on-one with you and sit down and go over your marketing plan and like calendar out everything for the year kind of thing. So I'm excited to like dig in deep with that. I'm excited. We were talking before we started this about, travel and some of the things that we're doing, together and events and things that are happening this year. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, it should be a good year.
Yeah, I was telling a couple people this year is so much different than last year at this time. And whoever you talk to, I mean, I would venture to say there was no light at the end of the tunnel for the real
Yeah.
estate world. Like, it just looked grim. And I think I mean, even however great your mindset is, and I would say we're both positive people, but last year it's like, this is rough. And there's not a lot of good things you can tell people. Now it's like, hey, you've been through a horrible year. Like, it's only up from here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna hit you with one last question. If it were your last meal on Earth, what would you be eating?
I am obsessed with tacos.
Okay.
So, like, the natural response would be steak and lobster, because I like that too. But steak tacos with the right guac in the right setting, it's hard to beat. So
All
that's my
right.
meal.
All right. I like it. Do you have a go-to Salt Lake place?
My house. We make mean tacos and margaritas. Tacos and margs. Yeah, you give me a margarita, you can give me anything else.
Yeah. All right. I like it. If someone doesn't already follow you on social, where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Instagram. So super easy. Michael Perry 123. And as you know, I'm not the best at responding, but there I'm pretty decent. I have some help.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate you. I am excited to see y'all on the journey to 1,000 this year, and can't wait to see you soon.
See you in a couple weeks. Thanks, Katie.